Okay, we're live. I'm Andrew Hall. Welcome to Dead Hand Radio Live. And my guest tonight is Reverend Shawn Whittington. He's a ghost hunter, demon slayer, author, psychic, and U.S. Navy veteran. Tonight is part three of our continuing discussion on all things strange and otherworldly, and you're not going to want to miss this. How are you, Shawn?
I'll go get them for you.
What?
Uh, oh, hey,
It's good to see you again,
I
man.
don't, I don't know that guy you're describing. Am I see you so big, and I'm real teeny in the corner there. Am I big too, or am I teeny?
Uh, on YouTube, you are
How do I
just
look? How do I look to you?
same size as me. I think that it's the view that you're using is probably speaker view. You can change that in the
I'm
upper
not
right
touching
corner.
anything
Okay, cool.
because you'll lose me, and
Okay.
it's going to be a miracle if we make it through this show because we're both in Vegas and we're like we're in a monsoon right now. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm just a few blocks from here. It's a massive blackout, and I'm so knock on wood. I'm amazed my house hasn't gone into power failure because it's notorious for doing that. But so far so good, and I'm happy to be here. You and I are going to have to quit meeting like this. People are going to start talking.
That's okay because we got some good things to talk about.
Absolutely.
The last two times we met, I think they were really interesting conversations, and tonight is going to get even more interesting.
Hmm.
Um, so, just to
Saturday
recap,
night parafever.
that works. Um, now, you started out seeing ghosts at an early age. How young were you when it started?
I was young enough to where when my parents took me to school, threw such a fit on the floor, rolling around like I was possessed, screaming and crying because I was such a mama's boy and didn't, that's just the way I reacted. That they didn't drop me off at school till I was a little bit older, but still very young to the point where I'm being taken to school, brought home. Forced to take naps in the afternoon, not let
Mhm.
out a lot, and I'm a little kid. So I want to say 5, 6.
Okay.
And I think when I was younger than that was probably seeing them, but didn't think nothing of it because you know how sometimes kids just uh, they look at things in a matter of fact way sometimes, and it just they go on with their lives and they don't really worry about it. But I think as I got a little bit older, they were making their presence known to me a little more deliberately. And then I was starting to get a little freaked out, and I confided in my mom, probably around the same age, 6, 7, 8. She was the only one I felt I could confide in. And my mother, God bless her, may she rest in peace. She's in heaven now. But she was Brazilian. She was from a little village in the north of Bahia in Brazil called Cruz das Almas. And that translation means cross of souls. And I believe at one time that village held a world record, maybe even Guinness Book of World Records for the village with the most churches in it. Devoutly religious village and area of South America. She was baptized Catholic, but devoutly Catholic and very spiritual, sensitive to spirit and that world. Because, like, there's almost no veil there. The dead walk among the living like it's just natural. So the people there grow up accustomed to that. So my mom, and to this day, I hear her tell me that all the time. Whenever I do see a spirit, I always hear her voice. And she just simply told me, "You're going to see a lot of spirit in your life." I can't wait to ask her when I see her again how she knew that because she was
Mhm.
right. But she said you're going to see a lot of spirit in your life, and they're nothing to fear. They're just people that don't have a body anymore. And if you see one, ask it what it wants of you, and if it's got a message for you or if it needs your help with something, and you can help it, great. If you can't, be honest. Tell it, her, him, that you can't help it, and for it to please leave you alone. And she said, then they will. Most of them did, some of them didn't. And there were some ones, there was a distinct difference, to me at least.
We'll get into the the more malevolent stuff in a little bit.
Okay.
But you've had experiences with these spirits throughout your whole life, and there is there's a lot of skepticism directed at people who have these type of experiences, um, and I'm sure you've experienced some of that skepticism, some of that pushback. Probably even had people either make fun of you or try to bully you because of these things. When was it you became aware of that you were different than most other people that don't see these spirits?
I don't think I thought of myself as being different. I just thought of my, I just, at a very early age, I knew not to, for lack of a better term, come out of the closet with it. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell really anybody, none of my close friends. I thought if I did, they would think I was crazier than they probably already thought I was, and I wouldn't have any friends. So I kept that hidden probably till I was in my 20s. But whenever I had an opportunity to do a little ghost hunting, a little ghost busting, a little paranormal investigating, I did it. I was that weird kid riding around on his bike, his Schwinn with the basket that had the cameras and the tape recorders in it, and driving around in Topanga Canyon and Malibu Canyon looking for old abandoned sheds and cabins and buildings to go explore. I knew I couldn't find any friends that liked that too. So that I kept to myself. Um, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't really come out of the closet with it till in my 20s.
In those early days, you had touched on that the first time we talked, and I wanted to explore that a little bit more. Um, and if we get into it too much, we might not have enough time for some of the other stuff. But I do want to dig down a little bit on that, on those adventures as in your younger days.
Sure.
Um, so, as a miniature Ghostbuster, or a Ghostbuster Junior, um, I have a couple questions. So, when you were out doing this stuff on your bicycle with your tape recorder and your makeshift ghost busting kit, um, were you afraid, or were you ever scared when you ran into these spirits?
Sometimes, depending on how they reacted to me and behaved. Um, to be honest with you, most of the time I went into places and didn't personally experience anything. And it wasn't until I got home and developed my film or started listening to my tape that I would catch a disembodied voice or some type of paranormal anomaly on a still photo. Um, so no, but I'm only human. I mean, to this day, things happen that will frighten me. I'm only human. And that's a very natural emotion. There were times, yes, that I experienced things that were frightening. Um, and I think that's probably part of my where I get my passion to continue to do it. The unknown, not knowing all the answers. We still don't know all the answers. There are no experts, and that I occasionally do get startled and get a good fright.
Yeah.
I think that's all cool about what it is we do.
Ghostbusters the movie came out in, I think it was the 80s, right?
Correct.
Uh, how impactful was that movie on you, and what did you think of when you saw that movie? Was it too fake, or was it did it have elements of reality?
I loved it, and I
Yeah.
still love it to this day. My wife gets annoyed with me because if we're channel surfing and we don't really know what we want to watch, and I stumble upon either one of my movie channels or a regular channel that shows movies, and either one of them, one or two, or they're both on back to back. If I don't click past it and I happen to stop on that channel, doesn't matter where the movie's at, I'm stuck, and I'll watch them both. When it came out on their anniversaries, they come to a local theater on the big screen. I drag my wife down there to see them, and so you know I've met Bill Murray. I've met Dan Aykroyd. Big fans, and I loved the movie really, really. And I'm looking forward to the legitimate sequel to two coming out, even though it's probably more geared for the younger generation. I'm looking forward to it. I heard great things, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, it does look cool. And the original cast is coming back mostly, aren't they?
I
I
heard
think a
rumors.
couple
I
of
don't
them
know for
are.
sure. I heard,
Okay.
of course, Harold. I guess the lead character is his nephew.
Okay.
Supposedly, the character that Harold played in the movie, it's his nephew. And I believe there's cameo appearances from all of them, but I don't know how much they're in it or how much their involvement is. But either way, it's gonna be a really really good movie.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I've always known. I mean, I was a Dan Aykroyd fan long before he did that movie, and I already knew that he came from a long line of family spiritualists, legit ghost hunters, Ghostbusters, paranormal investigators, heavily involved in the spiritualist movement. His father, before he passed, wrote an excellent book called A History of Ghosts. I recommend anybody that hasn't read that book and loves Dan Aykroyd and wants to know how he got inspired to write that movie, get that book. It's a wonderful book. I've gotten a couple of autographed copies of that book from Dan when I've met him here or there. But yeah, his whole family and that part of his background and his heritage heavily inspired
Mhm.
him writing Ghostbusters, or co-writing it, I should say.
Yeah. Well, great shout out for that book. I saw it on your website as I was looking through the website, and I've been on the website a couple of times. You got some interesting stuff there. A lot of very interesting pictures on the website. Um, so okay, being a person that has experienced spirits and at times the negative side of the spiritual world, it led you into the life of ministry. And when exactly did you start that?
Very, very late in life. I'm going to try to give you, I didn't even ask you how long our interview is tonight. If you want me for 5 hours, I'm yours the rest of the night, brother. I have two versions of the story I can give you. Excuse me. I can give you the abridged version,
Okay.
or I can give you a little bit longer version, but try to speed it up. But there's many, many things that fell into place over many, many years for me to be on the path that I'm on right now.
Okay,
I
well let's keep it short, and
Okay,
if I ask some follow-up questions, that'll give us room to expand on it. But
absolutely.
I would really like to get down, and I'm gonna say about 90 minutes is about as long as I'd like to go.
Okay,
If we need to go longer than that, then we
sure,
will.
sure,
Okay.
man. Um, well, of course, I'm here because of my mother and father, but I'm here, uh, absolute result of divine intervention. And now, where I sit here with you tonight, talking to you about it, I know, looking back on my mom's history, my father's history, and how I came to be, that I was absolutely created to be on the path that I'm on now and doing what I'm doing. But I've only been ordained. I was ordained through a Christian university, but I am a baptized Catholic. But I've only been ordained, I think, 6 years now. My wife and I, when we met, we were set up on a blind date, but we didn't know it. But instantly we connected. I know we've known each other in a past life. She has a she's 3+ time near death experience survivor, sensitive, intuitive. So I refer to her as my dowsing rods, my human dowsing rods. Instant attraction, instant, spontaneous, knowing that we were both had passion for the paranormal. So we didn't, that's almost 20 years ago. We met, fell in love, and got married. Started ghostbegone.biz right away. Started ghost hunting, ghost busting, helping people with their paranormal issues. And it wasn't until we had a very ugly case. We went to work a case and we believe we had something follow us home from this case. And it took up residence in our home here for about 2 months. And my wife was the primary target of that attack. But I didn't have a clue. I'd never really ran into the mother lode of all haunts and dealt with this type of entity before. So I didn't know. I mean, I wasn't on this path that I'm on now. So I did the only thing I knew how to do was reach out into the paranormal community for help. I was eventually introduced to my then mentor, who is now retired. She was a ordained exorcist, first female to be ordained a deacon in the Catholic religion uh, since like a long, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Legit, very legit. Took me by the hand, took me under her arm, walked me through step by step how to fight this thing and get it out of our home. When we finally accomplished that, she said she saw something in me I didn't see in myself, and she said, "You need to continue this training. I thoroughly believe you're meant to be become an ordained exorcist." So I did. I continued on with my training. Flip side of that coin, that ordeal came at a price. My wife, who's healthiest person I know, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, no history of cancer in her family. This entity unleashed an attack on her, which left her with three very rare forms of cancer. And she wasn't expected to survive. So, once again, she's still here with us. And that is due to extreme divine intervention, also, that she's still here. But that came at a high price. So, um, I would have to advise anybody that thinks it's cool. I think I want to be a demonologist. That sounds cool. I want to hunt down demons. I want to be an exorcist. If you're talking like that, then you absolutely do not want to pursue that course. I wake up every morning and pray I never have to take authority over another exorcism again. And I tell people all the time, I got drug into this field, kicking and screaming, and I'm only here because it was meant for me to be here.
Right. And so that pretty much answers the follow-up question to that was when did you first learn about exorcism? And it sounds like it was through that experience that you started to understand what exorcism was.
Absolutely.
Now, there are ghosts, there are malevolent spirits, and there are demons. And I think there's a couple of other different entities besides those three. But would you perform an exorcism on a malevolent ghost?
I will walk into any situation and put on the armor of God and allow myself to be used as a vessel for the Holy Spirit to come through and help with any situation, whether it be to help Uncle Tom or Aunt Betty that don't know they're dead or know they're dead, but are a little nervous about crossing over, had too much a hold on life, want to stay behind and watch over the homestead, watch over their family members. I'll use that to approach them as I will a spirit that wasn't very friendly when they were alive. So they're even meaner now that they're dead, and they don't want to cross over because they are afraid of judgment. And the longer they tend to stay around, they do tend to become a little more malevolent. And I hate to say malevolent because the demonic is way over the top. Malevolent, I don't even believe adequately describes what they're all about. If you've ever ran into them, your life will never be the same, and you will know that you have never ran into anything like that before, and hope to God ever, after that, ever again. But I have, after all these years, I mean, there's everything, man. Non-human entities, Dybbuk's, jinns, ghosts, demons, angels. I finally, after all of these years, from the age of 10, when I met my first ghost and we talked and I helped her cross over, I now have decided I'm 10 years old again, dude. All of the equipment I've bought, it's put away. I go to these places with, my wife's dowsing rods, a little handheld voiceover recorder that takes a little cassette decks, an old school ghost box, a Polaroid camera, throwaway 35 millimeter camera you get at the drugstore that after you've developed the film, you throw it away. That's all I need because you are your best tool and your best instrument. Okay. But now, after all of these years, I keep it simple now. It works for me. They're all the same. They're either ghosts, demons, angels. That's it. Anything else falls under if it's not a human spirit that's stuck here uh, because for whatever reason why they're still here, whether it's in visitation or they're stuck, or it's an angel, whether it's spirit guide, guardian angels, what have you, or the demonic. All of the rest falls under the demonic. The jinns, the Dybbuk, the non-human entities, the shadow people, all of those fall under the demonic. And I truly believe that. And everybody's been getting confused about all of that and trying to categorize everything poltergeist. I hate that term, noisy ghost. The Germans laugh at us for using it. It's just that, a noisy ghost. A ghost can be noisy, but people think the poltergeist is a demon. Well, they should change the name of that. Call it either a noisy ghost and then call the demon a demon. But this spirit is exhibiting poltergeist tendencies.
So my question to you on that was more along the lines of what what differentiates you helping a ghost to move on, beyond the life after death, and performing spiritual combat uh, by exercising a demonic spirit. What's the demarcation or the delineation between, how do you determine if this ghost is just a nuisance and needs to be moved on, or something that you have to um, really get dirty and exercise that
Well,
entity.
sometimes just doing a little history on the location in the home and the family that's called you in to help. Sometimes you already know the answers before you get there.
Hmm.
My wife and I both have a gift of discernment given to us that we know, like when I like how it is here, high noon in the middle of the summer in Las Vegas, you're like on the surface of Mars. But I can drive into a neighborhood, and if the home is demonically infested and there's someone there extremely demonically oppressed or already possessed, that home looks to me as though I'm looking at it through some dark sunglasses. No other home on the block looks like that but that home. When we go in, there's a much different attitude. I don't believe in religious provocation. So if we go in and the demonic are present, they're already provoked that we're there. So they start already coming after us. I can see them, I can hear them. And so they're already talking to us and talking to my wife. So we know. Ghosts, a little more aloof. And I already know it's probably by the way the family is reacting and telling me what they're experiencing, that it's probably just a human spirit. And talk to them just as though they're still there. Get the whole family together around the living room table and have a big talk with the ghost that's there and try and convince them, you know, you're dead. You don't belong in this realm. If there's some message you need to pass on or something you need help with, um, try your best any way you can from your side of the veil to communicate this with us. But then after we're done with here, there's no deals to be made. You need to move on. You can't just stay and promise that you're not going to scare the family anymore. You can't really make deals because their presence is still going to freak the family out, even if they never show themselves again. The family getting all the cold blasts of air all the time and hearing the footsteps in the attic, doors opening and shutting by themselves. That can be very unnerving if you're not used to that stuff. You've got cats and dogs in the house; they can see them. That freaks people out. But the demonic, completely different. And now you're talking about a ghost is a ghost is a ghost. The demonic, the difference between those cases is life and death. The demonic are present to take somebody with them, to kill, capture souls, take somebody with them, if not a whole family. And so that's the difference between just a haunt and a demonic infestation.
Now okay, so when you go into a situation, you're contacted by a family that's in distress for whatever the reason is. You make that determination when you get there, but they're freaking out, whether it's one or the other. Um, you have a couple of options when you go into a situation like that. If I'm not mistaken, you can uh, educate the family and move the ghost on. You could educate the family, and if the family decides, you can leave the ghost where it's at. Is that correct?
If they ask for that, I usually try to talk them out of that,
Mhm.
because they called me in for the same reason, that all those stuff reasons that they called me in, they're going to continue to experience that. They're just going to keep calling me back.
Okay.
Something needs to be done then, and the spirit needs to be helped on to wherever that may be. I don't know where they go. I don't know if there is a light. I don't know if there is another side of the realm, or if it's just another dimension. We're all going to know these answers one day, but right now I don't know. But they can't stay there. They don't belong here any longer. Um,
Okay. So, but your ultimate goal is to educate this family
yes,
on what they're doing, or what they're dealing with, and in addition to that, you also offer a spiritual warfare training course.
correct.
Um, when do you move into that area of discussion? Like, are people haunted versus a place being haunted? Like, is a person gonna have ghosts with them? Are some people gonna have ghosts with them their whole life and then need to learn how to deal with these spirits, and that's where you get into the spiritual training?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But my spiritual training usually is for people. I don't go recruiting. People come to me, and I can tell in my initial interview with them and meeting them if it's a calling for them, because it has to be a calling. I don't train people how to be an exorcist. It's a calling. So if a person feels a calling, and they are a spiritual warrior naturally, and they hunger for the knowledge to know how to properly draw your line in the sand and make a stance and put up the necessary good fight against true evil, God forbid if it ever comes knocking, that's the course for them. These family members that I go and counsel, I just counsel them through their issue. Now, if somebody in that family decides they've got that in them, it will come out without me having to recruit them, and they'll approach me later. But it's a very slow process. That's why a lot of people, I lose more cases than I care to admit, because when I tell people what's all involved, they just want me to run over there, wave a magic wand, and make it all better yesterday. But there's a process. I mail out, or I actually email them an intake form, and it requires the whole family to get together as a unit and fill this form out together. And it might take 2.5, 3.5 hours to fill out this form. They got to email it back. My wife and I read the form. We discuss. Then there's usually a follow up phone call. Then I usually have my wife call. Then, if we choose at that time that we need to physically go there, then we have a plan of attack. Whether we, at this time, we believe it's a ghost or it's a demonic entity, then we have a plan of attack. If it's a demonic entity, there's a lot of things to put in place before we show up. We have them remove all the children and all the animals, because they're the first targets. Because when my wife and I show up, this thing, they usually, not always, but usually lash out because they're provoked and they're upset that we're there. The first ones they go after are the animals and the children, and that can be very upsetting. So we have them remove the children and the animals, and then we go in and we do what we do. It's kind of, every case is different. You go in with a plan of attack, but it's a very kind of a loosey goosey, when in Rome plan of attack. Like, let's go and then see what happens, and then decide what we're going to do. And there's some things that we always do, but every haunt, every demonic case is presents very different.
That reminds me of a great quote that's credited to Mike Tyson. Every every person has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's the same. I mean, you could train all day long, but as soon as you go into a situation where you need to use that training,
There's another
all
famous
bets are
line.
off.
You're quoting lines here. Remember that line that the actor gives to Clarice in the beginning of uh, Silence of the Lambs? He says, "Believe
Yeah.
me, Agent Starling, you don't want Hannibal Lecter in your head." Demons are. Hannibal Lecter is a Boy Scout, uh, a virgin, not knowing anything about life Boy Scout, compared to a demon. You do not want them in your head. So I don't encourage. The first thing I tell people in my field that want to know, how do you go about doing what you do, and I can sense that there's something about them, and I'm going to give them this answer and maybe give them a little training, is you don't want to encourage, me at least, my approach is I don't encourage dialogue with them,
Mhm.
because they'll spin a number on your head and on your psyche, and they're liars and they're deceivers, and they always mix in a little bit of the truth amongst all of that, and it can just snowball, and before you know it, you don't know which way is up. And if you're not careful, these things will chew you up and spit you out and snuff your life out, um, in a heartbeat.
When you get called into a place, now we both live in Vegas, and I've I don't want to get too much into my own story about this whole journey of me looking into this topic, but I have only been looking into it seriously for like 6 months. Last October, um, though I've had a passing interest in it for some time. Um, I talked with, I interviewed the author of Haunted Las Vegas. It's a book about Las Vegas and how haunted this town is. It's not even a very old town, but there's a lot of people that have passed through this town, a lot of energy, a lot of residual energy, and a lot of ghosts. So, I mean, you must get called out quite a bit because of the activity, the spiritual activity in this town. How haunted would you say is Las Vegas?
It's off the charts, and every time I see a list come out, the 10 most, the 20 most haunted cities in the United States, most of the time it's not on that list, and I think it's a shame, because Vegas is very haunted. And sure, I mean, it's an old town, but compared to an old town like back east, it's not that old. But you have to remember what was here before that. Um, the Spanish Trail runs right through here. There's a park right around the corner from my house called Spanish Trail Park, and it's a rather big park. Not too many people know about it, but they left a whole actual authentic piece of the Spanish Trail going through the park with signs telling you the history of who traveled this Spanish Trail back in the day. And I've been there many a night at 3 in the morning running my tape recorder and got recordings of gunfire and stagecoaches and horses and you name it. There's a lot here. Indians, anywhere you walk. I'm sure my house is haunted. They didn't follow my wife and I here. They were here when we bought the home. I believe many of them are here now because they followed us from this case or that case, or our home must, in the spirit world, must look like the Luxor with that big light on top attracting them. But I do believe some are here already attached to the home and or attached to the land. A lot of Native American issues here. I've been blessed to be invited out by a couple of indigenous peoples, holy men, to work on the reservations, nearby reservations, for cases before. And so that's all over here too. So it might not be the town that's old, but the area is really, really old. And then you speed that up, and it's just a tragic town, man. Um,
There has been a lot of tragedy in this town,
right.
and it's gone through a huge growth spurt. I mean, um, we won't get into the whole history of Las Vegas. It's a very interesting and very tumultuous history, but we'll leave that for another time. Um, Now, when we're talking about how haunted Las Vegas is, and I agree with you. After talking to Paul Papa, the author of this book, um, it's just there's an incredibly vast array of locations throughout the town that are haunted. Um, but are there any places, locations that you refuse to go into?
Nothing is jumping out at me right off the bat. There's been some locations that It's kind of funny you asked that because I'm thinking of some of the extremely spiritually infested homes that my wife and I have investigated, and we couldn't wait to go back. We've been there, half a dozen times. Um, but a place that has scared me can't one doesn't jump out at me, but they're everywhere, man. You walk into like Bally's back in the day. That was the original Hilton that had the big fire, and the bottom two floors, the lobby and the first floor, were makeshift morgue for weeks after that fire, and all those people died. You can walk into Bally's at almost any time, late at night, and just find yourself a quiet place off in the corner somewhere to just sit and observe. And if you're sensitive to spirit, you see them everywhere.
Mhm.
So it's just it's everywhere here.
Have you ever been like when you're called out on these issues, you go through a pretty good vetting process. But have you ever got to a place and realized that you've been hoaxed? That this person has just been pulling your chain the whole time?
That's a good question, and I have to tell you, I don't think they've done it intentionally.
Uh-huh.
But my wife and I, it's just my wife and I. Well, we had a team at one time, but as after I became ordained, or during that process of becoming ordained and working cases of a malevolent nature, and they just started pouring in. Once I gave the nod to my teacher to put me through her training, that seemed to be like the only type of case that came across my desk. And so it's just my wife and I after a while, because I got tired of worrying about my other team members. I've had other team members attacked, followed home, had attachments, what have you. And I didn't want to subject people to that anymore. If I choose to do that, my wife chooses to do that, fine. I don't want to be responsible for anybody else. But it's just my wife and I. And so I don't know what some of these people expected. No one's ever really legitimately fooled us, but I've had many people open the door and just look at my wife and I and look around us and go, I know they're looking for the three big black vans, the 20 investigators, the thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment, and uh, and that's just not us. And they go, it's just you two. Yeah, it's just my wife and I. Uh, we're the Whittingtons. You called us. We're here to help you with your issue. Well, okay. Then we have the people that reach out to us and tell us ahead of time. The reason why I reached out to you is I know it's just you and your wife, or just you, Rev, and I don't want my neighbors knowing what's going on here. We're already looked at as the people that live in a weird house, and we're the weirdos now. And I don't need three big black vans and 20 investigators and all this camera equipment coming in here. I need you guys to arrive stealthily and just as maybe you're friends of ours or neighbors nearby that are coming over to visit. And my wife and I we look very unassuming, just an older couple that arrives in a little red Nissan Versa, and we get out with, I got a little bag, and we go in, and so there's two different rules of thought there. But I've had people open the door and excited that they were going to see this big team and all this camera equipment and stuff, and it didn't happen. And they're a little disappointed at first, but then they're like, "Well, welcome, come on in, give us a hand."
Well, that's the difference between you and a paranormal quote unquote investigation team, because it seems the paranormal investigators are looking for proof. They're there to capture evidence of a haunting, and for whatever reason that is a big draw for audiences. People like to watch that stuff, and
The
then
sad thing about it, after all this time, I have to say, and I'm going to get hate mail for this, is it's just, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really matter what you like. I've taken the most intelligent parapsychologists who were diehard skeptics on locations and had full body apparitions appear in front of them. And as soon as the apparition dissipates, they look at me and they're already debunking that what they think they saw didn't really happen. And it's probably due to this.
mhm.
It doesn't matter what you present, still photo, video photo, proof, um, EVPs. I mean, we can't have an open Like you and I are talking right now. You can't have a conversation like you and I are having with a dead person and record it.
Hmm.
So everybody debunks the ghost box, the new ITC stuff everybody makes fun of. There's still no proof. There's going to be people that are going to debunk everything and say that doesn't prove nothing. Looks great, but it doesn't prove anything. So that's another reason why we don't really sweat it. We're there for a different reason. But
Yeah.
when I get stuff, I'm happy that I got it. It may or may not help me in what I'm doing at that location, but we capture a lot of stuff, and I just don't put it out there. Sometimes if something's really, really just, I gotta put this out there. I just got to. I don't care what people say about it. I've got to put this out there. I'll do that, and I still have people that,
Thinking it's fake.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
and
understandable because there are a lot of charlatans around.
oh
There,
my gosh, yeah,
in fact, a lot of these ghost shows that you see on TV, it almost seems like these guys are acting for the camera. Some of the reactions that you get off of them. I won't name any particular shows or any of the cast members who do it, but
I
I,
will. Can I?
if I mean, if you want to,
I remember my wife and I worked a case. I'll go real quick here. Probably one of the best cases we ever had in this town. A haunted mansion built in the 50s in a gated community in one of the most earliest settled uh, homesteads in Las Vegas. All rich people, all famous people. This guy was like one of the richest copper barons of his time, and he built this home to have Gatsby style parties there. Later on, the home fell into the hands of the mob. Many people showed up at these parties, never seen again. It's rumored. I've had psychics tell me there were a couple of rooms there used for mob killings. There were legitimate documented deaths on the property. But my wife and I went there to investigate for a friend of ours who was a real estate agent trying to sell the home. Every time he took people in there, spirits would act up and scare these buyers off. So we were there. If we were there once, we were there a dozen times investigating this place. Made some friends with some spirits who even followed home, communicated a lot with my wife and stuff. We got some great evidence of a variety of types of evidence from this location. And so I just decided I'm going to reach out to the guy that owns the museum here and has had a 10 plus year popular running show. Um, and I don't know how he knew about the house, but when I talked to him about the house, he goes, "Oh, I know about that house." And yeah, I've always wanted to go in there. And you got in there? Yeah, I've always wanted to go in there and do a show. You can get us in there? Yeah. But then I hit him right between the eyes with brutal honesty. Unfortunately, the guy that owns the house now who's trying to sell it, old Italian dude, probably connected from the old country, and he's a nice guy, but you know how those dudes are. He's going to want to know what's in it for him, and
Mhm.
he's going to expect you to make him an offer to allow you and your television crew to come in here and film an episode in his home.
Yeah.
And so I thought you should know that up front. And then he says, well, uh, he's the one that suggested I would like you and your wife involved too, because you guys have been there so much and you've caught all this evidence and you probably have numerous stories to tell. I'd like you guys involved too. So I was totally honest with him. And if I committed some type of reality paranormal TV show faux pas, I didn't know the etiquette, sue me. But I was honest with him. I said, listen, for our involvement in getting you, making this happen for you, my wife and I are just hardworking blue collar people. We survive from paycheck to paycheck, and we don't charge for our ministry work and helping people with their paranormal issues. We would like some financial compensation to be part of this and help you out. Everybody knows the guy's a multimillionaire. What's the big deal? The second I said that, you know what? I think I'm going to pass on the location. Thank you.
Mhm.
And hung up on me. So, and then of course, many people that I've told that story to said, you didn't do a darn thing wrong. This guy, you know, got rich because he's so tight he can squeeze shit out of the buffalo nickel. Um, so it is what it is. But that would have been a phenomenal episode for him. and that location was just like right out of the movies. This legitimate haunted mansion with a bomb shelter underneath, converted into a bowling alley, and a sleepy river out back, and an adjacent hotel that was probably used for prostitution, and the home, many different secret passageways, you name it. This home had it all, and it would have been a great episode, but he blew it.
It sounds
Now
like
the
a
home's
cool
the home's
location
finally.
too.
My wife talked the female matriarch, who was the main haunt there, into liking this last family that did buy the home, and she was cool with them. And I don't know what she did with the other spirits to keep them in line, but these people were eventually able to buy the home. And I understand they've done a lot of remodeling and a lot of changing to it since then. But that was a great opportunity that he passed up simply because he's not used to people asking him, pay me.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with you asking for compensation
I
to
felt like
bring.
there was for a long time. I felt bad, but um, like you said, you and and many other people that I've told this story to said you did absolutely nothing wrong. You're just being honest, and he should have bent over backward and said whatever you need, Rev.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen.
So the when you get contacted and you go through the vetting process, when you guys go on location, you bring your little equipment bag. Can you describe what you guys do when you get there, and kind of how a typical ghost hunt will transpire?
If it's just a haunt, we go in and we sit down with the family and we just have a nice talk. I have a tape recorder running, but we just have a nice talk. And it could be about anything, what they've been experiencing, who's in school, what courses are you taking, what you guys have for dinner tonight. Tell them a little bit about us. We want everybody to be comfortable and everyone to feel like family and friends. And then my wife just walked through the house. We experience what we experience, and we don't experience what we don't experience. Whatever we see and feel, we see and feel. And if we don't see and feel anything, that's okay too. I may take a few photos, do a little filming. I don't do EVPs because that's falls under, for me, the category of conjuring. So I don't conjure anything. But I have the tape recorder running, and my wife works the dowsing rods. She'll tell me what she's sensing, and then we get together with the family again and tell them what we think, and then we try to have another sit down there with the spirit and find out why they're there, what they want, what's it going to take for this to stop and for you to be rest at peace. That's the goal here. If it's a demonic case, like I said, I already know before we even have left to go there what we're up against. When we get there, it's even worse.
Okay, the demonic cases we'll get to in a little bit.
Okay,
And I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but
that's all right. It's all
I
right, man.
wanted to save that stuff for a little bit later because I just want to talk about the ghost hunting aspect of it right now. Um,
Well, now I'm getting the major blast chills here. I can't see. How's my dream catcher doing above me? Is it spinning? Can you
I
see it?
don't. No, I don't.
Should be somewhere around here, hanging from my ceiling, and it's probably sideways.
Yeah.
But sometimes it'll do that and rock.
Are you getting some activity going on?
Well, if you see that spinning, you know spirit is here.
Okay.
But these are rattling in my cup here. They're my wife's dowsing rods, and I'll see what they.
So
Now,
so these guys want to
somebody,
be on camera,
somebody,
or they got a message to.
somebody's got to tell me what. Now, my wife is asleep at the other end of the house. Somebody has to tell me why, whenever I pick them up, they spin wildly like that. They don't do that for her. And then they usually end up both pointing back at me. But I was alerted to them because they're doing this in the cup to my
Uh-huh.
left here on my desk. Um, but yeah, I got a cold blast and I didn't want to turn around, but I thought you might be able to see on camera if the
I do see that thing spinning a little bit. It's kind of moving a little bit.
okay, it never moves. There's no vent.
And
There's no vent on. The vent's closed off in here. There's no fan. Um,
you did
so
say your house is really haunted,
yeah, we do live in a haunted house. So
but these are friendly ghosts.
most of them, and
Yeah.
but I do practically on a weekly basis bless, cleanse, and seal my home, smudge my property in my home every week or every 2 weeks. So usually when something that's not really doesn't belong here shows up, it's like a drive-by.
Hmm.
Things go on outside to alert me that they're watching, that they're here. And usually, when that happens, I know that my phone's about to ring and it's going to be another demonic case. They
Hmm.
kind of like are giving me, the red flag goes up. They're kind of giving me a heads up. I don't know if they're doing that purposely or they even know it, but I know that when I'm getting the recon blasts and the paranormal drive-bys, that I've usually got a case that's about to come over my phone or on my computer here that's going to be of a malevolent nature.
Yeah.
So
And you got pets too. Do you have cats and dogs or just dogs?
we currently right now, right, I'm surprised you haven't heard it. Maybe it's my mic's not that sensitive. It sounds like there's a child running in my attic back and forth right now. And I reached out to a good friend of mine who's probably the most gifted remote viewer in the biz to remote view my home. She nailed something totally different, but she said the walking upstairs is not a child, it's something different. And it dawned on me, we had 5 cats, all outdoor cats. We have carriers with the cage doors off, all around different areas of the front of the house. And we have like a quilt over them and a quilt inside, and they all have their own food and water dish. They've all adopted us. We didn't go and buy them. But now we're down to 4 because unfortunately the one that had been with us the longest developed a brain tumor, and we had to put her down last week. My wife and I both work in the animal medical field, so we took it to the hospital we work at and had her doctor put her down. And we brought her carrier back, set it back up as though she's still here, still put food and water in her bowl and dish. But we just 2 days ago got her ashes back. And just to my right here is a little shrine I made for her, the footsteps, and she used to always sneak into our attic and run back and forth. That's how we knew she was in the attic. And if we didn't see her out in the yard for a couple of days, we'd get paranoid she was stuck, and we'd go up there and we'd get her. She knew how to get out, but we would be concerned and we'd go up there and we'd get her. So I believe that's her. Can I prove it? No, but I believe the footsteps that I'm hearing now is her. Now that she's back. But so we have 4 cats outside. I have 2 huge mastiffs in the house. We moved into this house 18 years ago with 3 mastiffs. Those original 3 have all went on to heaven, and the 2 new ones that we have now, not new. One's 7, one's 6.5. But yeah, they see the spirit all the time. Um, uh, their eyes will follow things. Their tails will wag. Very seldom will they look into a corner and hairs will go up and they'll growl. That hasn't happened in a long time. Probably because I do a fair share of smudging and blessing the home all the time.
What would they react like that towards? What type of an entity?
Evil, evil, yeah,
Okay.
something that doesn't belong here. It has bad intentions uh, in store for the inhabitants of the home. Dogs can sense that.
We got a few viewers, and I just wanted to mention real quick, if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat on YouTube, and
A
we
popular
will.
question, I'll warn you, is the Rev crazy? And I'll go ahead and say I could be. I could be, I have a good friend that I've known all my life who went on to become a very successful clinically licensed psychologist. And I have another friend I've only known for about 20 years who is a psychiatrist. And every 6 weeks, 2 months, I will randomly call them up, make sure it's okay. That time's okay with them first because they're busy. And we'll just talk for an hour, hour and a half, like you and I are doing. And when the conversation's over with, if my wife doesn't come to me a couple of days later and say, I just had a little talk with so and so, and the rule here is they're supposed to go and talk to her about if they're worried about me, um, rather than come back to me. I don't know
Yeah.
how that works with doctors, but my wife they've never reached out to her after one of our talks, so I assume they still feel my elevator is going to the top floor and all the circuits are still working. But if that ever becomes an issue, the last thing you want is a crazy exorcist coming to your home if you're trying to fight off the demonic. So that's why I talk to my friends who
Well,
are.
that actually brings up a different kind of a question, because there are a lot of people who may have experiences similar to what you've had throughout your life, who have not had the support and nurturing guidance of a parent who has also had those same similar experiences. So there may be thousands, maybe possibly millions of people that
And
don't know.
most of them end up in psych wards.
Yeah.
Psych wards are full of people. Even homes where I had, like, the last couple of years of my parents' lives, I had to have them in nursing homes. And whenever I went to visit, man, sometimes if I went with my Ghost Be Gone hat on, I never went with the collar on because then you're just swarmed. But I would have people that work there come up to me and go, "This place is haunted off the charts. You got to come here one night when I work in the graveyard shift. I'll let you in. And you can go anywhere you want to go." But there's a lot of people, elderly people, terribly haunted. No one believes them. People in psych wards that I've interviewed, and I know they've got an attachment, but they're just drugged out of their mind on medication from their psychiatrist. God bless them. They're trained too. I don't judge. But that's one of the first questions on the intake form. Is anybody in your family, do you have a history in your family of anybody being clinically diagnosed with a severe mental disorder and seeing a psychiatrist now on any medications? Sometimes they're truthful. That goes back to that other question of yours. Sometimes they're truthful, sometimes they're not truthful about that, and we find out after the fact. Does that mean that every case I went to work that we thought was demonic wasn't because the person had a mental illness? No.
Mhm.
Many times I found out after the fact the person held that back from me, but they still were having a legitimate issue that we had to deal with. But I feel sorry for a lot of those people that weren't as lucky as I was, and they usually end up in mental health facilities.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And I think there is still more of a stigmatism or stigma. What's the right word? Stigmatism or stigma?
There's stigma.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's more of a stigma attached to people who see spirits than there is to people who see UFOs.
Oh, absolutely.
I
Well, you
think
know
I think
what's
there's
funny?
more of a stigma about people who
Yeah,
see
I'm
spirits.
not going to argue with you on that, but it's funny you say that because now, to me, it's all under the same umbrella. I don't know anymore. I have people calling me up.
A lot of people feel that way. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
everybody's experiencing everything now.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Are these?
Does it seem like there has been an increase as far as your own experience? Has the activity been continually increasing?
Ever since we went into the lockdown last March,
Really?
my wife and I had to make the heartbreaking decision to take at least a year off and not physically go to locations for our safety and for our client safety. So the good part about that, it's given me an opportunity to work on my counseling skills because now I have to work off of Zoom meetings or Skype meetings or StreamYard meetings, um, and talking on the phone. So I've had to get better at my counseling skills, and I'm fearful that St. Patrick's Day is the deadline here of this year, March 16th, 17th. If that if we're still in dire straits at that time, we may have to decide we're going to take another 6, 8 months or another year off of going out physically. I don't stop helping people and doing what I do, but physically going places. And what I want to say about that is I can feel people out there thinking, well, that's a drag, and it is a drag. Nobody's more sorry about it than me, but I have no magic powers. It's given me an opportunity to really show to people all along they had the power within them to turn their life around and get their life back, and whatever it is that's invading their spiritual space and their physical space from the spiritual realm, they have the power to push that back and get that out of their life. They just need to be taught how to do it. So I've been able to empower a lot more people, where back in the day I just fill out the form. Yeah, I should come over and see you. I go there and I handle it for them. Many times I'm back and back again helping these people out because they reopened a window. They didn't keep all the windows closed and doors closed, and they accidentally let something back in, and now I'm back there again. So it's sometimes it can be a never-ending cycle.
Do you ever run into a situation where people have brought the the spirits on themselves rather than the place being haunted. Like, for an example, I've heard a lot of times that people using Ouija boards could open up a door, um, or people doing some kind of just as a game trying to do a conjuring. Have you ever run into a situation where they got themselves in over their heads and now they need some help?
Well, you and I must be a little psychically connected right now because that's usually the cause of the majority of the issues. First question I ask is anybody in the home you feel is sensitive to spirit, psychic medium, a channel, what have you? And is anybody dabbling in the dark arts? Are you guys actively involved in anything that would fall under the spiritualist movement, like conducting seances, playing with Ouija boards? So a lot of times it's exactly that. And I am really not. Back in the day, I can't even count how many times I've used a Ouija board, but I do believe the Ouija board was responsible for whatever that was that followed my wife and I home that attacked her. It was responsible for that. So we don't use them anymore. It's been many, many, many years, and I don't plan to use them again. And I advise people not to. I don't judge, though. There's people out there that love them. So it is what it is, but I don't use them. And that does bring on a lot of trouble. And a lot of my clients nowadays are young ghost hunters. Thought it would be really cool to do it, got a team together, and they just went out and they start ghost hunting. And they don't really know what they're doing. They find themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time, saying and doing the wrong thing. Now they have an attachment, a jumper, a hitchhiker that followed them home, and now they're calling me. So there's consequences to every decision you make. If you want to be a ghost hunter and you just want to do it part time and it be a hobby, that's so cool. But there's some responsibilities that come with that. You better be careful.
Yeah. I got a viewer question in the chat, and they're asking, and it's a good question. I actually had thought about asking you this, but what's the difference between you, what you do, and a psychic medium?
Many psychic mediums, and I have a great one coming on the last Monday of every month on my Monday night show, Vegas Supernatural, Susan Ahern, the happy medium. Many of them don't like to do ghost hunts or paranormal investigations. They just help people with their spiritual issues, and they channel and they give messages and they help people talk to their loved ones that are trying to communicate from the other side. The ones that do get into paranormal investigating, that just happens to be the path that spoke to them. But legitimate psychic mediums, channels, trance channels, especially, they're far more gifted than I am. I don't know how to control what I can and can't see, when I can hear and not hear them, when my words are going to be heard by them and not. That's the big difference. I do have some gifts. My wife's even more gifted than I am, but I can't control it like a legitimate gifted psychic medium can, who's harnessed that gift of hers and worked over many, many years to fine tune it. They're far more gifted than I am.
Yeah, and the psychic area of different abilities, different gifts, whatever you want to call it, spans a broad spectrum, from seeing spirits, talking to spirits. Um, I I'm not sure if, and I have a guest coming on Monday who would probably be able to answer this question, but
I think I know what the question really was getting at, and I'm sorry I didn't
mind
finish.
reading
Well,
is another psychic
but
ability.
they probably wanted to know how I differ and what I do when it comes to dealing with the demonic versus a psychic medium. Most psychic mediums draw the line there because they know how dangerous it can be,
Yeah.
and they are so open to that that if they do come across that type of entity, they most of them at least the ones I know, would rather take a giant step back and then let me go in and do what I can.
Well, and that's absolutely true. I do know another psychic medium who has been on the podcast previously, and she doesn't like to deal with the demonic whatsoever. In fact,
I don't either.
well, but she will intentionally, veer away from it, where you'll go in and deal with the situation if you have to. So, because of your training, your faith, and the tools that you have available to you, this is your area that you're meant to be working in. So you don't run away from it; you confront it head on. Whereas a psychic medium can see the spirits and decide whether or not to engage or just stay away from that situation. Um, the uh, the other thing that I was going to say, I was going to ask you a question about um, is remote viewing a uh, you might not even be able to answer that question because there's a big controversy that remote viewing is not a psychic ability or psychic gift, as you call it.
Mhm.
But there's another
A lot of people get that mixed up with astral traveling.
projection,
Um,
astral
yes,
projection. Yeah.
absolutely. All I know is I know a couple of people who every time I've asked them to do that, and they type in my address in the computer, and the satellite gives them a picture of my home, and they do whatever it is they do, and they call me back and they tell me what I need to deal with, what I don't need to deal with, what may or may not be happening at that time. And these special two people have a little different way they do it, but they're usually always spot on. Because when I start to peel the layers away and look into the direction they told me to look into pertaining to the issue I'm having, it usually is what they've told me usually turns out to be spot on. How they do it, I find totally amazing. But you're right. My mentor back in the day could astral project. And it used to happen to her when people that were very close to her that she cared about were somewhere else in danger. And if she was asleep, she would somehow get that signal and she could astral project there and actually see what was happening and say things to her loved ones or the people close to them, like say this, do that, pray this, get out of there now. Um, I found that off the charts remarkable,
Yeah.
and you just one of many gifts that God gives people. And you know what? I'm going to say that I think everyone has gifts like that to one degree or another, but we don't know how to fine tune them and harness them. And some of them freak people out when they start to feel like there's something different about them. They turn it off and they want to go the other way and put the blinders on. So, but I think we
And
all
you could really suppress those gifts to a point where you no longer have access to them. And that's kind of a tragedy because you're given those gifts for a reason, I think.
absolutely,
And I think that well, it's not for me to say, but it seems to me that should is the wrong word to use, but it would be more appropriate if people would embrace those gifts, and use them to the benefit of humanity, um, which is what you've chosen to do. So let's let's get into the little bit of the darker side of what you do. We won't leave it on that note, but we'll talk about that for you know most of the remainder of our time tonight because that's the scary stuff, and that's the stuff that I have a lot of questions about. For some reason, I don't know why I have a lot of questions about it, but I do.
do you feel the need for me just to put a blessing on us, or do you feel the need for a quick prayer of protection?
Hey man, if you feel the need, then I'll let you make that decision because you're the guy that has to deal with these things on a regular
Y-
basis. I don't I don't
You're the
really
one that knows what you're about to ask me.
I don't
So
see.
if you're going to get into the nitty gritty, I
I mean, if you think, no, I'm not trying to conjure anything, but yeah, I
I
mean,
know.
feel free to give a
These
blessing.
things don't want you talking about that stuff. They'll do
No,
whatever
it's
it.
that's not what I'm getting into. I just want to learn more about your experiences and
Absolutely.
stuff.
We're blessed. We're good to go.
Okay,
If I break out, a prayer, um,
you're not
it
going to
might.
offend anybody here. I don't. You're welcome to say a prayer. Go ahead and do that, Sean. I
Yeah,
know for your safety as well
I
as
don't
everybody else.
really know. You may ask something and a question that something that I say in my answer uh, may inadvertently provoke something, and I'm safe, brother. I'm thinking about you.
No, I'm good. I am good.
All righty, guys. This is a quick one. Lord Jesus Christ, in thy name I ask thee to bind and silence all powers and forces that do not accept thee as Lord and King in the air, in the water, in the ground, the netherworld, and nature, and the spiritual world. I ask thee to bind all demonic action and demonic communication. Lord, seal this whole place, all of us here, and all our intentions in the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Mary, we ask thee to surround us with thy mantle of protection and crush Satan's power in our lives. Saint Michael the Archangel, we ask you and all our guardian angels to defend us in battle against Satan and the powers of darkness. Amen.
Amen. That's a good prayer. Where did you get that out of?
This is a book that I've had for a long time called Deliverance Prayers.
Oh, okay.
And it's got a black cover and it's Census Traditionis Press.
Was that something you received from your training?
Most of this stuff is given to me either by gifted to me by other clergy, other people in my field, or books that were required for me to purchase during my training. Um, oh my gosh, if I tried to pan the camera around, I'd probably drop it behind the computer and you
That's okay.
wouldn't, the show would be over. But most of my office here looks like the library scene in the original Ghostbusters. All the books stacked up, uh, many that I'll never ever get to that are gifted to me or I've gone out and bought and I want to read, but life happens and I'm not really big on reading anyway. So there they sit. But a lot of the books like that are gifted to me by other clergy.
All right. Well, then now that we're blessed, we're safe, and we could talk about this stuff without worry. I wasn't worried anyway, but it's always good to say take extra precautions, right?
Yes.
So the you may have already answered this, but can you talk a little bit about your first encounter with a demonic presence, whether you knew it or you found out later? Was this the impetus for you to become a minister and to go down this road of becoming an exorcist?
A coworker reached out to me. She had just gotten married, and she was saying that I came to you because they used to refer to me as Shawn of the Dead because that was the popular movie at the time, and everybody at my work knew that I was into the paranormal. So she said, "You're Shawn of the Dead." And I didn't know anybody else to come to. Um, and then she just broke down. She says, "I'm being raped at night by something that I can't see. My husband even sees it happening to me and tries to jump in and intervene, then he comes under attack. And it's been progressively getting worse to the point where it happens to me in the shower. It'll happen to me, at dinner, sitting on the couch watching TV, right in front of friends if they come over to visit. I need help." So my wife and I went over there. And like I said, up to this time, we hadn't really worked a case where the presence of an extremely malevolent force or entity was present. So we used a Ouija board to communicate because for a while there we weren't getting anything. This thing was really hiding well and avoiding us, and only one time did it really. It sounded like it was inside the wall. It sounded like Bigfoot was inside the wall and smacked the wall with a log. at one point. That was the only thing we really got, and it made everybody just jump out of their skin. But we used a Ouija board to try to communicate, and I had a ghost box going at the same time. And we were getting some communication. Like I said, I look back now and I can't, probably everything that was being told to me on this board was a lie. But a voice, a very familiar voice, and I couldn't put a name to it, came across the box yelling, "Stop." We took that as a sign to stop doing the board, and it was a different feel than what was coming across the board. So we stopped. But we were on our way home. It was about 3 in the morning. My wife's cell phone rings, and she has caller ID, but there's no number registering it from somebody calling, and it's ringing. On the outside chance it might be my client needing help, and we're not too far from there, we can go back, answer it. She answers it. There's nobody there. I don't think nothing of it. I go home. We go home. We go to bed. Immediately that night, I start having night terrors of a black cloud hovering above me, swooping down to my face, lifting back off, swooping down to my face, lifting back off. Every time it swoops down into my face, in my this dream, I can't breathe. So that morning I wake up, I tell Sharon about it. She's like, "Yeah, that's a little odd." She goes to work. I start hearing children playing in my garage, and we have kids in the neighborhood. I'm like, "Oh, well, how'd they get in my garage? They must have left it open." I go out there, there's no kids in my garage. So make sure the door's locked. I come back in the house. A little bit later, I hear the kids again. I go out there, no kids. I go out to do some gardening in my yard, and I start being attacked by these birds that I've never seen in southern Nevada before. Maybe you can tell me if you've seen them. They look like a cross between a raven and a blackbird, a crow, but they're not either. And they've got like green eyes. And there was a half a dozen or so of them on the part of my roof just above the eave where my front door is. And every time I went out there to water or throw some seed down or sweep, they started dive bombing me and attacking me. So one point it got so aggressive, I even got in my car and waited it out. And I'm like, am I in the sequel to Hitchcock's Birds? I mean, what is going on here? I'm really freaking out. I get back in my house. Some time goes by. I'm having a little snack in the kitchen. I hear kids in the living room, in the garage again. I go out there. My garage is just one massive swarm of bees. I freak out and shut the door and lock it. Um, I'm at this point, I don't think I accepted that it was paranormal. I'm like, we have bees here. They always tell you about that. We have beekeepers here, and we always have people that come out and get rid of bees from your home. So I'm like, oh my God, I can't afford a bee dude to come out. I got to get rid of these bees somehow. This is scary. Got dogs and stuff. So I came up with this brilliant idea to make a makeshift bee suit, which I made. And I said, I'm going to go out there, not swat at them in case they're the African killer bees, which everybody scares you about. I'll walk real slow through the swarm, unlock my garage door from the inside, walk back into my house, quiet, shut the door, go outside, unlock the garage door, make the sign of the cross, hope that I'm going to be okay. And I'll lift the garage door open and I'll go back in the house and wait it out and see what happens. Worked like a charm. I waited a couple hours, went back out in the garage. The swarm is gone. I'm like, whew. Sharon comes home. We finish up whatever we're doing the rest of the day and into the night. We go back to bed. These night terrors of mine got even worse. Sharon was talking to herself in her sleep like she's fighting something off that's trying to choke her out. She got so violent with it in her dream that it scared our dogs and they even ran out of the room. I'm having the same dream. It's so violent. I wake up out of my dream. I step off out of the bed into ankle deep water in my in my master bedroom. Something burst a water main in the wall and flooded us out. So I get outside, turn the water main off. We walk into the living room. To this day, we still sleep on a California Queen mattress on the floor in the living room with our dogs. We don't sleep in that room anymore. We had the flood guys come, took a lot of carpet out, took some drywall out. They got the big fans going, but all of this stuff, I started having one paranormal thing after another happen. Now I know it's paranormal. Now I know something's followed us home. My wife, right about the time I realized this, my wife comes home from work and she's talking to me like she's having a stroke. I'm like, honey, what's wrong with you? I broke a tooth, I think, and my tongue's been rubbing on it all day long, and it's really sore, and I can barely talk or swallow or chew on anything. I got an emergency appointment to see the the dentist tomorrow. She goes to the dentist. He goes, I don't know what that is, but it's not a broken tooth. There's something going on with your tongue. He sends her to a ear, nose, and throat specialist emergency appointment like the following day, and he diagnoses as squamous cell carcinoma of the tongue, which came on like that, dude. In a matter of like 2 weeks, her whole tongue was one giant mass. She couldn't swallow water or talk. And she couldn't swallow water and talk for about a year. She had a feeding tube in. I had to help feed her every night, 3 times a day. I had to help feed her. She went from like 140 pounds to like 90 pounds, in and out of ICU all the time. That spread and became medullary thyroid cancer, which is the rarer of the two. Medullary spreads, and there's no cure for it. The medullary did spread into a bunch of lymph nodes in her neck, and then that also spread and became another rare form of throat cancer. Our doctors said, this is what we can do. We're going to put her through some radiation and some chemo, but they didn't tell us until many years later that they didn't expect her to survive. They wanted to cut her tongue out. They wanted to send her to UCLA and have her tongue taken out. She wrote me a sticky note. For a year, I came home and would read a refrigerator door full of sticky notes from her because she couldn't talk. That's how we communicated for a year. But she wrote me a note. If it comes to that, just let me die. I'm not going to live without my tongue. But I knew right then this was an insidious attack on her. So one night, I didn't get to tell you the other part of the story, but my mom made a deal with God one time where she had walked on her hands and knees to church and asked for a favor. And if he granted her this favor, she would continue to walk on her hands and knees to church the rest of her life, which she did. I remembered that story, and one night I'm looking at my wife laying in bed, and I'm 100% positive she's not going to make it to morning. And so I know my dogs are going to protect her. I get up and I go to the nearest all night prayer chapel around the corner. And I did the same thing. I walked on my hands and knees all the way to the altar and I asked God, you got to save her. I come home and I told him the same thing. I will crawl on my hands and knees whenever I come to church, change my life around. I'll stop doing the drugs, stop drinking, everything. My life is yours from now on. But she doesn't deserve to go out like this. My phone's ringing when I come home. A buddy of mine who was an atheist, known him all my life. He's back east in New York on his deathbed from advanced colon cancer, an atheist. He knows what I'm going through. Not exactly. I didn't go into all the other stuff. But he says to me, I needed to call you because I'm not going to be here much longer. I wanted you to know that I saw God, and he wanted me to tell you that Sharon's going to live, and you need to keep putting up the fight against those responsible for this. I knew exactly what that meant. And it's been 7, 8 years now. Sharon's still here. Yes, the 35 straight treatments of radiation right into her face and her mouth saved her life, dude. For months, she walked around looking like a survivor from Hiroshima. I kid you not. Smelled like that, looked like that. Imagine having the worst sunburn you could ever imagine in your life times a million right in your mouth and on your face and your neck and your shoulders from all that radiation. 6 weeks of chemo. They wanted to give her 8, but after 6 weeks, she was almost dying, down to 90 pounds. They had her in the isolation ward. So they stopped the chemo. And it was bad, dude. They thought for sure it was over. But right after that evening, and I got back up on the horse and started fighting these things, she started to make a turnaround. So to this day, she's still with us. Her speech is still a little off, but she's able to drink, eat. Last full body CT and MRI show no metastasis or signs of any of the diseases in her system anymore. And so I owe God that to continue to fight. Having said that, the next demonic case I worked, I came under extreme demonic attack. And that attack was so frightening. I'd never been that frightened in my life. I know now, after talking to other people in my field, that I probably did actually die and was almost drugged to hell. And it was my guardian angel that saved me and brought me back from that. And I was so frightened after that case. It didn't matter the deal I had made with God. I told him, I'm not up for this. I can't do this anymore. You should have warned me that it could get like this. And I walked away from the field for a year. And then a pastor friend of mine showed up one day begging me to help her with a paranormal case, which was probably demonic. And I fought her and fought her. Man, I said no to her many times. You can do this. I'm not in it. I'm not doing it any longer. No, I'm being told, she's very sensitive too. I'm being told you need to come and help me. I finally gave in one day. She caught me on a good day. I went and worked this case with her. And at that case, I had a vision of the Holy Spirit. And that was a total kick in the butt to me, that God was letting me know, we never went anywhere. We always had your back. This is what you're meant to do. And so that was it. And it's a good thing I jumped back on the horse then, because the very next case after that was a really ugly possession case with a young boy. And I don't think, if I hadn't been the one that the mother called, that boy would probably be dead now. So it all happens. Everything happens for a reason. But I'll have to tell you the story the one day of my father and my mother and their background and how they came to be together and their history, which directly led to my mother making that promise to God. But at that time, I had two older sisters, and my mom's pregnancy with my second older sister was very rough. And at that time, she was told, "You shouldn't have any more children because you and or the child probably won't survive the pregnancy, because it is what it is."
And this was
Whatever.
before you were born?
And so when my dad was on his deathbed, dying from a very rare disease right after the war, and he wasn't expected to survive till morning. My mom went to the church on base. He was in the Navy at the time, 25-year retired Master Chief radioman, naval intelligence, very credible person. He'll tell you stories about seeing his guardian angel, saving his life in the war and all that. But she made a deal with God: if you spare my husband's life, I will crawl on my hands and knees from this day forward till I'm too old to do it any longer, on my hands and knees at church, and I'll have another child. So she went to the hospital, and my dad was sitting up in the bed. No traces of the disease that he had that was killing him was left, and she kept her word. She did that until she was too old to do it any longer, and da had another child. It was me. She used to embarrass me when I was little, to be honest with you. She used to always, in front of people, call me her miracle baby.
Yeah.
And she'd always say, "You're going to do something great for God one day." She never elaborated on what that was. I don't know if she knew or didn't know, but she would tell me that all the time. And now I look at me today and I'm like, this was all planned out, man. This was all planned out.
One more listener question or viewer question, and then we'll do a couple things and we'll wrap it up. Uh, so the Santa Maria 5248 asks, um, the when did the practice and teachings of exorcism first start, and how did it come into being?
For me, or
No,
in the
for
world?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, it started with Jesus Christ. It started with Jesus Christ. I mean, he was, casting demons out of people when he was walking this earth. And I feel a real. This is another I already almost broke down on you once here. I don't want to do it again, but that's another very emotional thing for me, because I had a very gifted psychic that didn't know me, got a message and hunted me down and found me and searched me out and approached me and told me that what my name was and who I was 2,000 years ago. And I actually walked with Christ as one of his followers. That's a pretty heavy thing to lay on somebody. I wasn't one of the 12, but she said there was like 35, 40 apostles of his that followed with him, and you were one of them. And so many things since being told that by this person have happened to me that were like just one light going on after another, one candle lighting by itself after another, like pieces of this great puzzle being put together right in front of my face. That it was just a very moving thing that happened to me. And so, but it started with Jesus Christ, and Catholicism is the religion that Jesus left us. Um, Having said that, I have so many friends of all walks of life, all religious beliefs and backgrounds. We all respect each other, we all love each other, and we find it amazing that so many of us probably are praying to the same God, whether we call him something different or not. But we're all in agreement that there is something of a much higher vibrational power of love and light watching over us and trying to protect us from sinking into the abyss of the much lower vibrational malevolent world and all the entities that rule there, which his father cast down anyway, or Jesus's father and God cast down there anyway. So we all find that fascinating, and we should respect each other for our different beliefs. Um, and so that's why it really hurts me when I see people fighting over religion,
Yeah.
and it's just
Well, there are so many things in this world that are meant to divide us and keep us separate from each other. Um, I don't know why that is. I you know I mean I'm sure there's probably a reason. I'm sure there's a thousand reasons for it. But my goal is to try to connect with people, and you know that's it. And your goal is to help people heal. So we each have our role in this world, and that's a beautiful thing.
absolutely.
Keep doing what you do, man. And
You too, man. You too. You yeah, you're a good dude. You're a
thank you.
really good dude. I enjoy talking to you. This is our third time sitting down
This
like
won't be
this.
the
It
last. I
feels
have
like the very
so
first
many more
one. And
questions. Yeah, absolutely. I have so many more questions to get to, but I want to respect your time. Um, these things can go, 3 4 hours, but I really can't do that anymore. I got to keep these
I
pretty.
know what you will enjoy if you've got the time. Monday night, my guest on Vegas Supernatural on KCOR is Paul Eno. He was actually about to become a priest. And because of his love and passion for the paranormal, he got kicked out of the priesthood.
Mm.
Went on to become one of the most well known paranormal investigators in the field. He worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren. He's got a very popular radio show, paranormal radio show back east. He's on Monday night. And then the following Friday on my Facebook Live show, Reverend Shawn Whittington's Paranormal Ministry, I've got another woman, Christy Clemens Hoffman, who is a channel and works with angels. So she's really cool. She's got a great podcast too. And both those two guests, with what we've talked about tonight, you may really enjoy both of them.
Yeah, I'll try to check it out. Monday, I might have a conflict,
Well,
uh,
you can go
but
there and
next
get the
Friday I
archive
can do it.
anytime.
Okay.
All my shows are archived. Well, actually, having said that, the Vegas Supernatural, you have to be a member of the Dark Vault to
Hmm.
get access to them, but membership is cheap. But all my archives are kept there for replay on the Facebook page um, for the Friday show.
And you also have your own YouTube channel. Do you want to? Do you have a?
The YouTube channel is just Reverend Shawn Whittington. Reverend is spelled out, Reverend Shawn Whittington, and I just put the archive episodes of my Friday show there. But the Friday show is live at 2 p.m. Pacific on Reverend Shawn Whittington's Paranormal Ministry Facebook Live page and simulcast on the Paranormal United Network Facebook Live page. Vegas Supernatural is on kcorradio.com, and that's Monday nights at 5 p.m. That's just a radio show. That's not a podcast. And my book, my book, you'll find it at my website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz. True story inspired by spirit and divine intervention. And I quote, the scariest book I ever published. That was Annette Munich, owner of Stellium Books, my publisher. But the good thing about buying my book is part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my book goes to support stjude.org and St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada. And that's a beautiful thing.
Great cause. Absolutely. All right, Shawn. Well, with that, I think we could call this one in the books.
Okay, man.
And as always, I thank you for your time. I thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And we'll do this again soon.
Absolutely, brother. God bless you. You know, I love you. You know, I respect you. Give your whole family a big hug for me. Stay healthy. Reach
Absolutely.
out to me anytime. And I've got to have you on. I already had you on my Friday show. I got to get you on my Monday show. Now that's a 2-hour show, so you better come prepared to tell all these stories that you kind of hide within yourself that you don't really want to blurt out there. You better come prepared to tell the world what makes Andrew Hall tick.
Okay, we'll put that one in the we'll put a pin in that one and come back to
All
it.
right, brother.
All right. Talk to you later, Shawn.
All
Take
right,
care.
man.